Welcome back to the LEC studio. You can see Splyce having a huddle, but let's talk about that game. Fnatic Misfits. Look, the EU Masters inside of me, it's shining. I am so ready to see Leader play like that, and he absolutely knocked it out the park.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to talk about the game. I don't want to talk about Misfits. I just want to talk about Leader. That guy was absolutely incredible in that game. Not just, getting fed on this Akali, but then you see what he does within individual fights on this. In the 5v5s, in the 5v4s, in the 1v5s, this guy is still pulling it off, and it was so clean.
I'm still a bit of a cynic in that I sit there and I remember the
Get out of here! Get out of here!
The Leader games
We've
so
got no
far
space.
this
No
split.
space for that.
And
No
I'm
space for
happy
that.
to see him win this game in convincing fashion, but do it at least one more time before I'm bought into the Leader hype. Great performance from Misfits. Great start as we move into the second half of the split. I just hope that they can keep this consistency up before I get bought into the Misfits hype train.
I was actually watching his pro view that game, and I was like,
Very good player. Very good player.
Like, what is going on? Right, let's move on to the next game. It is going to be Splyce versus Vitality. And after a terrible start to the split, ramping up, Splyce are looking for, Vitality are looking for a big win up against Splyce tonight.
Yes, they certainly are. And one of the things that we were looking at is what was the situation that Vitality found themselves in to be not even in playoff contention or like near towards the bottom of the standings. And a large part of it was coming to the split. I felt like that they needed to adapt. They needed to shift in their play style. And that was something that after speaking to Yamato Cannon, they haven't really been able to do. They spent a lot of time trying to play through the top side of the map and enable Cabochard. And if we actually look back at their week 4 or last week, week 5's compositions rather, we can see that in their Friday games, they tried to still do this. Like Qiyana in the top lane, Echo in the mid lane, and just like a safe, stable bot. This is very much a, let's try to play through top, let's try to play through Cabo, and this is a style that doesn't net them a lot of success here in the LEC.
Yeah, but we have seen, then in other games, them focusing more on the bottom lane, and specifically we look at Mowgli's jungle proximity to his other lanes. Very early on in the split, it was very much, higher relative to Cabochard than it was to Attila and Jacktroll. But we've seen in the last few weeks a little bit more of a shift overall in terms of where he's spending a lot of his time.
Yeah, and it helps when they draft towards that way as well, because we only have to look at that game immediately the next day when they played up against Origin, and they look to lock in both the Draven and the Fiddlesticks. A much easier lane to play around, a much stronger champion for Attila to actually get early advantages on. Meanwhile, the two solo laners are on something safe, something that doesn't require a huge amount of jungle attention, but can still influence the rest of the map. And it was very impressive to see Vitality pull off a lot of these plays and find the setups in order to find a big win over Origin.
Do you think this is a confidence boost for them? Because this is a game that they want to win. They're now in that race for playoffs. They are at the bottom end of the table looking to sneak in towards that sort of middle table playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, nothing says confidence to me more than Attila getting his Draven and then having a pop-off performance on it, having all the attention given towards his lane. That is definitely a big ego boost for him, especially as he and Jacktroll are on the rise after a couple bad weeks at the start of the split.
I think it also confirms that this playstyle can work for them and they can look to leverage it more into this weekend. That's why I've taken a bit of a gamble today. I've predicted Vitality to get the upset win over Splyce because I believe that they've been aware of their issues and they're going to come in today prepared against a very strong-looking Splyce.
So we chat about Vitality. Let's have a look at Splyce now. They're currently in 3rd place, and I'm going to be honest, as a guy who has watched LEC through spring and summer split, I've always looked at Splyce and said they're average. They're average, right? They're just that run-of-the-mill middle team. They're going to fill the pack in the middle of the table. They're actually bloody good, though. They're actually really bloody good, and they're a real top 2 contender. Why should I be excited about them?
I mean, they're sitting in 3rd place right now, so they're one of our top teams in the league. That's reason number 1. The second is Xerxes in the jungle, I think, is a very intelligent jungler. The way he passed through the early game, he's very good at reading his opponents and being in the right place at the right time. And then past that, yes, things can get a little slow in the mid game. They like to take their time a little bit, but this is one of our best team fighting teams around major objectives. They're very good in those situations.
I've been very impressed with how Splyce have developed. They're a team that typically gets better throughout the split, but I feel like in the first half, they've already showcased a lot of strong stuff. And as Ender was saying, I think the humanoid Xerxes combo has been really influential in their success.
Right, let's move over and see if Vitality can crash Splyce's game plan over to our casters.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. I'm very intrigued to see what level of performance Vitality will bring to the table today. Splyce should be the favorites, but if Vitality perform to the best of their ability, I think they can go toe-to-toe and they can make Splyce work really hard today.
Yeah, and just to echo Vedius' sentiment, I also agree with this. I think that your safe money is definitely on Splyce here. They are looking in top form, they look excellent. But I think that stylistically, there's that situation that Vitality could create where as Splyce are making these map movements, setting up all of their pieces, that Vitality are a team much like G2 that cause a lot of chaos in the jungle. They like making picks, and that's one of the weaknesses that Splyce have. They take so long to set up that if you snap grab them, you can punish this team.
And on the same token, this is a team like Vitality that like to make those snap grab moments. Let's see what the team compositions land on, because obviously the champions will have a very large impact in whether or not these teams can make those plays happen.
So I was jotting down a couple of bans that I thought might come out here, and I was like, Splyce are 100% going to snap, lock away that Drave, and you cannot let Attila have that champion. And so far, everything's going to plan here. I also love the fact that Vitality giving so much respect to Splyce by banning away the likes of the Qiyana.
Do you have a preferred first couple of picks that you'd like to see these teams maybe prioritize based on their strengths?
I wanted to see Sylas get through because I love watching Xerxes on Sylas, so I'm actually really curious that Splyce decided to ban it from blue side, so they must have a very specific priority pick in mind, if that's something like an Akali or maybe an Azir if that's safer. Normally, if you're like trying to play it safe, the blind pick here is Azir, but I would love a power pick. That's an interesting power pick.
Okay, and Xayah for Kobbe, he's 3-0, undefeated in the champ.
So what's interesting here is that if you check North Garen, his most played champion is Rakan. Xayah, Rakan, we talk about it all the time. Jack Troll hasn't played it yet. And this is kind of one of the big exposed weaknesses for Vitality, is a champion that is so important and so powerful they haven't really gravitated towards. So this could just be Splyce throwing down the gauntlet and saying, we know for sure we're going to get the Xayah Rakan, and you can't separate this combo, which is why we have the priority pick on it.
And that seems to be the case. Kai'Sa, Nautilus locked in. And Frosk, all this does to me is make me even more impressed with Splyce's preparation, research, understanding. They throw down the gauntlet knowing that the Rakan could get taken away, and you assume they will have an answer if it does. It doesn't. They get Xayah Rakan as the combo and the Azir, which is what you were talking about just a few moments ago.
And this just tells me that Splyce have a perfect read on what Vitality was going to do. They left it open. They said, we're going to gut check you. We know that you don't play this champion, and they got exactly what they wanted. It wasn't the Azir priority pick, but they get a very strong blind pick that gives them so much power in a 2v2 mid-jungle situation with push priority, and then they get a phenomenal bot lane in Xayah Rakan. So far, it seems that everything's gone Splyce's way.
And the way that this draft is already playing out, do you know the voice in my head is very loud today, Frosk. It makes me think that Vitality are going to be in a very difficult situation. If Splyce are already in their heads as far as the draft is concerned, I want to see how these last two picks play out in Phase 2. I then want to see what the decision-making is. If Splyce have been able to download Vitality's tendencies and decision-making trees, well, maybe they're not going to get caught out in the setup.
I mean, it feels like they've got a read on them. The fact that they're banning away the Kled, if any top laner would have the Kled prepared, I was definitely looking to see Cabochard's Kled performance here. You have the opportunity where you can continue to pinch on the top lane pool, maybe ban away the Neeko or the Kennen, but if you leave them both open, then you know you're guaranteed at least one.
Yeah, exactly. And that means the Evelynn will be the final ban, and this is going to leave the questions, what else will we see in the top lane? Interesting
of the Eve ban. So they're assuming that Mowgli wants to go for an AP-oriented jungler. Your other AP junglers left open are still the likes of things like Elise and Gragas. Gragas has been the thing that Mowgli has gone to, so it could also be the assumption from Splyce that Cabo is going to take an AD, but they say, nope, Jarvan. Technically still a flex.
Yeah, technically still a flex. We could see that going top. Something Cabo has done many, many times in the past, and well, he hasn't done it this split. We've got a few seconds left now on this Phase 2 pick phase here for Splyce, who, by the way, are also wearing their Pride jerseys. You can see them on board right now. It's Pride Month here in Germany. It's Christopher Street Day tomorrow in Berlin. It's going to be an insane, insane parade and celebration. And the next pick is going to be Kennen, fairly safe up in that top lane.
And it's also one of the Chachi special champions. When I think about Chachi and Odo, I always kind of think about the Kennen. So glad to see him pull that. And wow, Olaf got so far through this draft phase.
Now, why are you surprised by that? Huge priority pick. You would have expected it sooner.
It's also something that Mowgli loves. So I find it interesting that he picked something like a Jarvan. Mowgli seems to love blitzing into enemy junglers and kind of 1v1ing them, and Olaf's excellent at doing that. By prioritizing the Jarvan, you're getting a bit more teamfight utility. And Oh, it's Jarvan top.
Oh,
There we go.
okay,
That's
so
the Mowgli I know and love.
there we go. We anticipated it could have been a flex. We know it is in Cabochard's wheelhouse, and now we see the pivot. That is a lot of damage dealers on the Vitality side.
And I forget who it was. I think it was Wonder that did the J4 into the Kennen and spec'd for the Comet, I believe it was, or maybe it was Airy, and he basically used the flag to play the poke game or the long-range game with the Kennen. So we'll keep our eyes on what Cabochard prioritizes in this matchup and what he specs into.
Okay, so what do you anticipate then from how these team compositions are going to be played out?
I mean, it's a pretty big team fight composition from Splyce. I assume it's going to be an AP Kennen, but again, we'll keep our eyes on this one. Whereas on the other side, I actually think there's a lot of skirmish potential and much more like early game. Not necessarily early game focus. I take that back from Vitality.
Skirmish focus I like, though. Like, when you think of the synergies in the 2v2s and the 3v3s, there are so many options you can do in this Vitality side.
It's about when these teams clump up. If Splyce get to sit still with their team, because Azir works really well when a team fight is located in one area, especially when you have a Kennen, whereas if it's a big 5v5 team fight, Vitality really excel when the team fight gets split up, when it's kind of 2 members on one side, 3 members on another side. You start making these 1v1s, so chaotic, explosive, moving team fights are really key for Vitality.
What I really like is we're jumping into the game and both compositions reflect the team's preferred playstyles. Let's take a look who's going to come out on top from Vitality and Splyce. Just before we start the video, there is a very brief pause, hence the overly dramatic music, continuing to be overly dramatic. But what I do want to ask, Frosk, just before we went into draft, you did begin highlighting the differences in these two teams' play styles. Just a refresher for everybody who's watching, Splyce, when they do tend to take their time setting up a play, setting up for something on the map, they do sometimes get caught out, and that can be what thwarts some of their mid to late game decisions, some of their mid to late game plays. Vitality's got a team composition that looks good in skirmishes. So the question I'm going to ask you, Frosk, is do you think Vitality today with this comp can disrupt the current second best team in our league?
I mean, they definitely have the champions to cause that chaos. I was pinging into production because I was very curious what the problem was. When they loaded up into the game, I saw that Jarvan had Glacial Augment, to which then I was like, uh-oh. Depending on what caused that, that could be a big problem here. And then I quickly went to pro builds. I'm like, Glacial Augment, that sounds a bit unique here.
Yes, it really
is.
does. What I can confirm, the production team and league officials are currently investigating and claim that the incorrect room page wasn't loaded up. While they are investigating it, I'm going to go back to the question I asked. And just before we were on camera, I actually said to you, if both of these teams play at their best, if both of these teams are not, you know, running it down mid and turbo-inting, do you think this Vitality and their playstyle preferences can beat the informed Splyce?
Vitality on their best day versus Splyce on their best day. Do I think that it's possible? Absolutely. The problem is that you have this idea where the form that we see from Splyce, like, this is maybe a bit abstract, but let's say you give a team a score out of 10. And let's say Splyce have the capability to get to like an 8. And Vitality have the capability to get to a 9. Doesn't have to be these numbers, can differ.
Hypothetically.
But the thing is Splyce are more likely to hit that 8, that 7 every single time, whereas Vitality are more likely to hit a 5 or a 4. So even though they theoretically have the potential to do it, the consistency to actually reach that potential is one of the issues. And even that said, I actually don't know the answer of if I truly believe that on their best day, in a best of 5, if you make these teams play 100 times, if Vitality actually win that, I would actually, again, put safe money on Splyce. But the potential is there.
Got it. And in a best of 1, where you don't get
or anything
a best of 5, when you don't get a consistent number of games and results, then maybe it is possible. Just to give you guys an update, we will be remaking the lobby. I don't have the official wording on exactly the nuances as to why. So while the players are busy dropping out of the game and starting to recreate, we are just going to talk a little bit more about what is at stake here. Just before I ask Frost the question, I used the statement that Splyce were the best team. Now, the reason for that is if we look at their second best team, correction. If we look at their head-to-head over Fnatic, they're 1-0 up. Assuming that Splyce end up winning this game, they'll be tied with Fnatic and currently own the head-to-head, meaning that if a tiebreaker scenario were to happen, they'd jump ahead right now. But obviously there are still rematches to go. And as it stands, Splyce's consistency has looked very, very good over the last few weeks. And we just saw Fnatic lost to Misfits, so that's definitely coloring my opinion just a little.
And I also want to give credit to some of the key members that have made Splyce really show up in the standings. We always say his name. Gonna say it. It's Xerxes. Xerxes is one of our best junglers in the league right now. Very unique style. I'm super excited. I haven't gotten to cast a Splyce game in a really long time. I always like excitedly get to watch backstage where we just like giggle with the other color caster about Xerxes' pathing and kind of the decision making that he does. He is just like, if you are a jungler and if you are in solo queue, if you're trying to get your 5-5 together, watch this guy. I think he is really brilliant and something special. Ender did a great segment on Xerxes' pathing, I believe, last week.
Correct.
It has been clipped out. I recommend to go watch it to kind of give an example of some of the decision makings and how clever Xerxes can be in a moment to moment.
And if you really want to take a very close look, go check out ProView for a more specific feature. You mentioned giggling at Xerxes' intelligent decision making. As the play-by-plays backstage, we love giggling at Mowgli's decision making. Because while we love to appreciate the anticipation and like the intended effect that Mowgli's looking for, he very, very often bites off more than he can chew. And it's the risk of having that type of player, you know, the double-edged sword, where you can just as easily stab yourself with a bad call as you can get your team an advantage.
I think Mowgli looks for plays that not all other teams would want to act on, that they feel that the risk versus reward margin of error isn't quite there in their favor. That said, what I really wanted to see from Mowgli is him playing more through Jacktroll and Attila down there, and because they have Kai'Sa and Nautilus, there's actually more opportunity for that to happen. So I'm excited to see the Lee Sin. I want to see him paired up with Jacktroll.
All right, well, let's see what is going to work out. I do have some official wording for you. Due to a bug with Cabochard's runes, League officials have decided to remake Champ Select, the same picks and bans, and we will be getting into game shortly. I can tell you right now that the lobby is up. Phase 1 bans are just about to complete, and we're going to see how many of you guys at home were able to correctly predict this game. It's one that only Vedius and Froskuren opted for a Vitality victory. You very softly mentioned that at the beginning of the game. Do you believe it is the right prediction now that you have seen Draft, now that you have seen how it has played out?
I'm a little bit more scared now. Okay. I feel that Splyce are kind of in the same school of thought that it feels like a lot of teams are when facing Vitality is, I think Cold put it best. If you don't lose the game, Vitality will lose the game. Which is a pretty basic answer, but it's this idea that Vitality themselves tend to combust. You know, the car only goes for so long before it decides to explode. And so I think a lot of teams, when they face Vitality, have that mental of, guys, if we just chill for a minute, like 25 minutes, they're going to, you know, do themselves in anyway.
I'm such a huge fan. That is the evolution of the Scara. They were winning until they weren't. You know, I absolutely love that. It is a self-combustible or self-exploding prophecy on the Vitality side because they definitely overreach. But they try their best to win. It's that Jizuke tweet from all those weeks ago. Do you prefer me 0-0-0? Do you prefer me to, you know, freaking try to do something?
And maybe biased here because I did have the Vitality upset. But I feel like that's also an outdated opinion on this current Vitality's squad. I feel like it was absolutely true coming into summer. You were seeing so many individual errors coming through, but Vitality have really cleaned it up. Jacktroll and Attila especially have really stepped up, and they look like a different team.
Yeah, at pre-Rift Rivals, post-Rift Rivals, you would not say that these were the same 5 players. One of the things I definitely want you to tell me about once we get into game, which we are just moments away from, is how and where Vitality will prioritize their resources. You've got a number of lanes that you can play around. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of tools with Lee Sin, Jarvan, Lee Sin, Nautilus, Lee Sin, Corki. A lot of options for you to play with. So I want to not only see what they do, but I also want to ask you, Frosk, what you would prefer them to do, knowing the comps, knowing the players, knowing their opponent.
I think it's pretty clear that Vitality will probably go for an early gank onto top side, or at least there's the potential from that, especially because you're against the likes of Kennen. If you don't give that lane some attention, depending on how the runes are set up, how it plays out, there's obviously a lot of potential there for the ranged matchup champion, and Jarvan has such great gank setup and assist.
All right, well, we are just loading up into the Rift, which does mean hopefully the music and the dramatic video will be kicking us off for our 4th game.
I love a dramatic video.
Yes, as do I. Just a reminder as well that the very next game is going to be Origin versus G2, so make sure you guys do stick around for that one. Woo, yeah, a couple of chants there. We're loading in a game for Vitality versus Splyce.
And it is not the Glacial Augment, it is the Aerie coming through for Cabochard there. So how we saw Wunder popularize this matchup is you have your flag and you drop your flag multiple times on Kennen, and with the power of your Keystone and the flag, you will slowly whittle him out.
Believe in the power of your Keystone. Oh, I like that. Do you think this changes any like the priority for Mowgli?
No, I still think
like
that
to see him top.
you have great gank assist potential, but I feel like everyone knows that of Mowgli.
Yep.
So, I mean, the thing with Vitality is you know that he's probably going to come top at some point, so Itachi just needs to be on his best behavior.
One of the things I'm going to be looking at is just, again, this like evolution of Vitality. We know what to come and expect from Splyce. We know they're reliable and strong in the early game. We know they're a little slow and questionable in the mid game, but they've stolen themselves a ward thanks to that sweeper that Xerxes picked up. Remember, all of the praise that Frosk was shoveling onto Xerxes, we're seeing it come true again. But there's still the wild cards in Vitality, the way that they play.
Just bulldozed into Mowgli's jungle here. And not only is he then forcing Mowgli to start onto the bot side, but he's also then delaying potentially when Mowgli gets access to his Krug camp. If you don't get an early Krug rotation, then it doesn't spawn around like 430, 440, and that's when a lot of top lane ganks can come in because the junglers will path that way anyway to pick up their Krugs. And so it also then kind of gives extra safety for Itachi down the road.
Okay, and then let's see whether or not Mowgli can disrupt that at all. You've already mentioned that you wanted to see him
and he's going to
get to the top lane.
Double Raptors.
Oh man, that's such a good advantage for Xerxes.
And this is why I love Azir for a team like Splyce, because you have such an intelligent jungler like Splyce. We see this combination of Azir, Olaf all the time. Azir is going to get the push priority in basically every single matchup. He's got it hard shoved. Xerxes bulldozes into Mowgli's jungle, takes his Raptor camp, now gets double Raptors, is just power farming through this.
Well, Humanoid on his Azir, 2-0 undefeated. He's managed to pick himself up 7 kills, 2 assists, 2 deaths and 12 assists, correction. So very, very good performance. And this is going to be a triple buff start here for Xerxes. He's already going to work his way. He's got a level advantage already before he picks up the Brambleback. And look at the minimap. No chickens, no red, and Mowgli's going to make his way across the Splyce's jungle.
So Mowgli saw the cross through because he watched how Olaf walked through the mid lane, so he knows that he went for double Raptor, and so Mowgli's trying to use this tiny little window where he can slip in and make sure that he's able to secure the red buff. But Xerxes, with that information, goes for the gank mid.
Okay, the Undertow's not going to find a target, so Jizuka's able to walk away. Riding that little hug to the best of his ability. He's still sitting on Flash. He's got the Klepto as well. And here comes Xerxes. Mowgli will secure the blue buff, so it's not going to be the 3-buff start. And Xerxes actually doesn't want to pick a fight just yet. You can see that's because Cabochard had already left lane.
Yeah, didn't have the prior. Hold up. Bot lane.
A lot of damage onto Attila. He's gone very low. That's picking a fight with Zion Rakan. Jack Troll is locked low. He's got Flash available to him. Fluff can't even use it. Norscarin cuts him off while that's going on. Vizichachi's being run down. No! Manages to escape a few seconds longer. Cabo and Mowgli dashing forward. Flash over the wall. Do they chase? The answer's no. 1 for 1. Splyce and Vitality.
But it's top versus bot, and this is what we expected. It was the priority pick of the Xayah. They knew that Splyce knew that Vitality wouldn't take the Rakan. They get it for free, and he gets the fadeaway feather. Just slaps him right on the ass.
Yeah, I need to see why or when Jack Troll decided to go for that Flash. Norscarin chased him down. Okay, teleports have been used. Chachi goes top. Jizuke comes mid. And oh my word, Jizuke, that was an awful trade as soon as he returns to mid lane with the Cull.
Do you want to give some credit to Mowgli before we focus in on this mid lane matchup, however? We said that he kind of like cracked open the window, found his opportunity to grab that red buff, but then also forcing the play onto the top side as we take a look back at what happened bottom.
All right, while that's going on, minimap, Jizuke was under some pressure. But yeah, Jack Troll just not anticipating Attila being the target.
Didn't even get him with the feather. He actually just slapped it with his hand.
Yeah, it looked like an auto attack, right? I wasn't sure if it was Gleaming Quill or auto.
You assume it's always going to be the fadeaway Q, but nah, he gave him the backhand.
Yep, gave him a little bit of a slap, solidifying that Kobe and Norscarin on the bot lane to be feared. I mean, they've got the duo. Also, Norscarin's one of the more criticized players on the Splyce roster, so to see this start against a weaker duo, it's a very good confidence builder for the Splyce squad.
The word that I want to use with Norscarin is there's a lot of variance in terms of what version of Norscarin you're going to get. He's been tagged, though.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little bit of variance. He's going to be able to find the knock-up onto Attila. Kabi and Xerxes moving forward. That's a 2-man route. They get hit with the meat. Mowgli is running for his life, but he can't get away. That's another to Splyce and a double. Norscarin 2-0-1.
Just disrespect. Vitality thinking that they could get around that corner right there. Kabi's like, what?
Oh, Norscarin with the BM. I love that, by the way. I know it's probably toxic, but I love it. Oh, man. While that's going on, Jiizuke gets tagged in the mid lane, and he's got a gigantic wave to deal with. He's got flash available, so I'm not sure it's really a diveable target.
But it's state of the map right now. Humanoid has the push. He's just chunking Jiizuke out here. Norse Garen and Kabe have absolutely rocked this bot lane now. Attila and Jackal don't have access to flash, and immediately that means that Xerxes is rolling up into Mowgli's jungle. He's placing Deep Vision, ward on Raptor Camp, as well as a control ward on that blue buff. And Xerxes is going to be looking either for continuing to power farm, stealing away, denying these Raptor camps. And when this blue buff respawns, there's probably a chance that Splyce will challenge that pending where Humanoid's back is.
Okay, I'm going to see how that works out. As it stands, Mowgli's got the small level advantage as both junglers find themselves in the mid lane. I'm going to wait to see if any shenanigans break out. Flash and Emperor's Divide is available for Humanoid.
Look at Norse Garen.
Flash and W, though. All right, where is he going? What do you anticipate to happen here, Frost?
Well, they're basically baiting Vitality, which Vitality shouldn't, because Mowgli's only level 5 right now, doesn't have the ultimate. But they're saying if Vitality engage here, we have Norse Garen and Humanoid and Xerxes in the area to punish.
Man, Humanoid is doing such a good job. 54 CS to 41. I want to look at just this matchup really quickly as we get a momentary breather. Humanoid versus Jiizuke. Look at the damage percentage for their respective teams. Humanoid doing a whole lot more, especially in weeks 4 and 5. That's what these numbers are showing. Chachi's going to be in trouble. Unfortunately, my timing is a little off. But if you take a look at the kill participation as well as their deaths, just Humanoid outclassing Jiizuke.
And he has complete control over this mid lane, and the play is actually about to be set up here for Splyce. We said that this was going to be a blue buff secure. Now you can see that Splyce are exerting pressure over the mid lane and leaking into Splyce's jungle. Meanwhile, Mowgli's then trying to force a play with Cabochard, where they have numbers advantage, where they have pressure advantage onto top side.
Is it enough to claw back this deficit? Vitality, yes, they are at least trading blow for blow across the map. They're down 1,000 gold, and now Splyce seem to have uncontested access to the Mountain Drake.
Yeah, but because it's something like a Mountain Drake, and because it's, you know, the Kennen who's being punished, which still has a lot of team fight utility later on. You know, he doesn't need to be snowballed or kind of springboarded into a lead, especially not into this matchup. It still feels that Splyce are trading up. They have more options, and they're getting more for the trades that we're making cross-map. It's like tower plates to Cabochard versus a Mountain Drake for Xerxes.
Yeah, and tower plates to Humanoids. Azir, who's been the danger man for Splyce, plus the Mountain Drake that's going to help them push more tower plates down, etc. As you mentioned, it's just looking really good. So Splyce, 3 kills to 1. As I mentioned already, they're up 1,000 gold. They've got CS advantage in the mid and bot lane. And also, if you look at the item disparity here, BF Sword, Double Longsword, Dagger, and Doran's versus Pickaxe, Cull, and Doran's. That's a gigantic difference. And in the mid lane, it always feels bad when you have to get a Hex Drinker first as Corki. It delays that Trinity Force by such a long time. And it's just going to make this, you know, Corki riding Corki not that scary for a little longer.
And it's also then when you don't get to ever use the package offensively and you're forced to just use it defensively to get back to your lane, clear some waves. I actually think that Vitality might not know that they still... Are they ever going to rotate to their blue buff? Are we going to be able to pass blue over and then Splyce walk back over and challenge Vitality's blue? No, he's pathing towards it now. Okay.
Okay, so we got the opposing control wards. Vitality control ward, the Banana Bush that we just saw on screen by Xerxes. And Splyce have got their hands on one over on the right side. Now, with Xerxes showing his face top, I'm trying to remember, Xerxes not spent too much time around the top lane over the course of this game, but obviously Mowgli has showed his face several times. And now Mowgli's once again coming up. We've got the makings of a 2v2.
I'm curious if Xerxes was spotted by that ward as he tried to walk up here.
Well, let's take a look. Visit Chachi. No flash available. Slicing Maelstrom is. Cataclysm and Dragon's Rage is up, so a couple of flashes down across, and look at this. Humanoid's getting jumped on by Jiizuke. As soon as he's got that Hex Drinker and a couple more levels, he's putting the burst damage down. Flash and Emperor's Divide is available. There's no more minions, though. Mowgli, how confident is he feeling? Humanoid looking for Jiizuke. Jiizuke's playing bait, but may have just worked. That manages to work! The Emperor's Divide, though, catches Mowgli under the tower. It's a trade! 1-4-1!
I don't know how he bent it like Beckham around those minions to find Azir there. Crazy play by Mowgli. Excellent use of the Emperor's Divide, however, to trade 1 for 1.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful on both sides there. Mowgli picks up kill of his own, and then Humanoid with the counter. Now Xerxes got to chase Valkyrie Flash Jiizuke, so that's not really going to be easy. He's able to escape easily. And while that's going on, by the way, look how low this tower is already. Kobe and Norse Garen are just bullying Attila and Jackal. Plus 20 CS. between the 80 carries. They've taken nearly every single plate, and this tower is just moments away from going down.
I mean, the unfortunate reality is that after the disaster bot lane for Vitality, when you didn't have access to flashes by Jack Troll and Attila, yes, now the summoners are back up, but Mowgli looks at that bot lane and says, there's probably nothing here for me, and instead is focusing all of his time into, you know, trying to make a play for the mid lane, shadowing top, shadowing mid, and then Attila and Jack Troll are just getting rolled over as Kobbe and Northscan got a free lane.
What I love about this as well, just remember the picks and bans, as Humanoid's taking a lot of damage here. Big one is coming close for Jizuke. During the course of picks and bans, it was a first pick Xayah. Splyce looked Vitality in the eyes, they looked Yamato in the eyes, and said, we dare you to play Rakan. We dare you. They didn't, and that meant Splyce got Xayah and Rakan, and they got themselves this gigantic advantage in the bottom lane because of a plan that they instigated from draw.
But you could see what Vitality were thinking, like, we have Nautilus, you know, it's fine, we can take this matchup, but it just didn't work out in one of those situations. Now, one of the nice things is they did manage to get the Herald, gave that over to Cabochard, so that's going to be helping him out a lot. And now we've swapped our lanes, there's no Dragon to play around, there's all of this pressure that Splyce are exerting topside, but Mowgli's here just in time.
Okay, Xerxes up here, 0-0-2. On his Olaf. Cabochard continues to push down the bottom lane with the help of the Rift Herald. So she's been summoned, and now there's tower pressure on both sides. Splyce obviously got the tower first blood bonus in the bottom lane, and it looks like Chachi will be able to defend at least bottom lane for now. Just a couple extra plates go to Cabo.
But you can see that Xerxes is now working with his mid lane priority. He's holding hands with Humanoid. They're walking again into Mowgli's jungle, placing down vision. And what they're doing is giving Kobbe and Northscan the authority to hard shove this lane and hard force this tower.
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. Cabochard looking for a solo kill here. Got a lot of damage. Flash is available. Chachi's going to get his up soon. Here comes Mowgli as well through the jungle. Now, can Chachi outplay this? He's got no Hourglass or even a stopwatch.
Does have his ultimate.
All right, does have ultimate, does have flash, needs to dodge a whole lot here. Cabo and Mowgli, they don't fancy themselves just yet because Humanoid is making his way down bottom.
Yeah, you saw the pings went out. They didn't have perfect information about where Humanoid or Xerxes were, so heads up play by Splyce to recognize the potential danger that Chachi was in, and then the confidence from Chachi to say, I got Proto Belt, I've got Flash, I have ult. Even if I die, you guys will get down here fast enough to make a difference.
Coming into this game, Frosk, I was wondering what the team was going to look like, how Vitality were going to spend their resources, and you know, my assumption is that Cabochard is probably their strongest player. While I'm talking about that, Jizuke takes a lot of damage in the mid lane. And I've got some stats just to look at Cabo's 15-minute mark, because this tower doesn't look to be contested. Cabo, jungle proximity around 8%. Kills plus assists at 15, 0.5 in his aggregate CSD. Now, on a team that has lost 6 games, obviously it's going to be fairly low, but you can see the impact he's having, the pressure he was exerting on Chachi, thanks to the help that Mowgli's been giving him over the last 13 minutes.
I mean, we know that Cabo's a great player and one of a source of strength for Vitality. The problem is that it feels like a lot of teams are playing more through mid and bot lane, and that's where Vitality haven't made the adaptation. They tried to have the Kai'Sa Nautilus. Things went very wrong when Mowgli got involved with that lane. The flashes came out, and then they lost all power and control there, and it slowly bled over to Splyce having complete control over bot side river because they always have priority there. They now have complete priority over the mid lane.
Oh man, this is going to be just another tower falling. Vitality have yet to secure an objective until this very moment. Cabo's not even going to get the tower yet until this next minion line congas its way in. So 3-1. Will be the score. Admittedly, the bottom outer turret is just a hair's breadth away from falling over. Now Vitality moving their way into the jungle. So now we're starting to enter this phase of the game where the map is going to open up. And I think you've said it really eloquently and really easy to understand that if Splyce take too long setting up a play, there's the possibility for them to get caught out. And with the power of Vitality skirmishing, that's what I want to see if Vitality can. If they can claw back this deficit by catching Splyce out in their setup.
So Splyce are a great team that are able to identify exactly the objective that they're playing around, whether that's a monster objective, a structural objective, a vision objective. But certain members, Chachi and Northscan certainly come to mind, as does Humanoid, sometimes get caught out as Splyce are on the map setting up the play around the objective or whatever it is that they want to accomplish in terms of how they set their play, and it delays Splyce. And I think that's one of the reasons why their game time tends to drag on, is because when we get to this point in the map where it's open, where it's in the mid game, they don't have the cleanest setup comparatively to some of our teams like G2.
Okay, and then this is what we need to see get better. This is also one of the things that I've heard as one of the biggest criticisms as why Splyce are not yet definitively in the discussion for finals. You know, you anticipate the likes of a Fnatic or a G2, maybe even an Origin, at least in weeks gone by, to be able to contest. But look at this. It's Vitality that are getting caught out. Teleport coming down from Splyce. Once again, Norscaron, he starts the fight. The Cataclysm comes out, instantly cancelled, and very good disengage here for Vitality. They get out with their lives.
Yeah, it was a good disengage, but I do want to credit Splyce for finding that opportunity. We just talked about their setup, and their setup's beautiful right now. Look at all the control wards into that river. Look at the fact that they are just chunking Vitality underneath this tower. They had 2 pushing waves, mid and bot lane. They made sure they had mid priority, and then rotated over to Xerxes and Humanoid. Xerxes was shadowing Humanoid, holding his hand, letting him push up the wave safely as something like an Azir.
I absolutely love that. By the book, playing it safe, the right steps, even made the right call. But I think, again, all credit to Vitality. They managed to escape the situation unscathed. Just a little bit of chip damage on that tower. There's still 1,500 gold down. 2 dragons as well. And just an update for you guys, stick around for the post-match. We will once again take a look at Xerxes' jungle pathing. We'll also discuss a little bit more about the matchup. And I'm just going to praise him once again. 0-0-2 in this game. He was one of the players that led that charge just a moment ago, and he had a very big impact in the positive plays that got Splyce their early lead.
Just an unsung hero. I think it's really easy to see when, Brox is turned online, his scoreline looks ridiculous, he's making these flashy plays. Xerxes is not necessarily that player, so I do like the fact that we continue to try to give Xerxes credit and try to put a spotlight on such a talented player in our league.
Well, there's one thing, you know how I love my fun little stats, Frost.
What is it?
He is the lowest amount of deaths for a jungler.
10?
Yes,
Yep.
correct. So if you look at the percentage of deaths of his team's deaths, he's at 10%. It's the lowest of all junglers. He very, very infrequently concedes deaths. If you look at the team, it is, in fact, Vizicsacsi and Norscaron that tend to concede a few more of those, death counts. But just keep an eye on it, keep tracking it. It's not always the most obvious. You do have to really sometimes look through the minutiae of his calls, and he's one of the big reasons why Splyce currently are sitting in the top and looking for another podium finish.
So state of the game right now, Vitality are in a sticky situation where they don't have the items that they need on Attila's Kai'Sa to feel confident looking into fights. They just don't have the item breakpoints. You have Kobbe who's sitting on his rapid fire cannon as well as his Essence Reaver. It's gotten better now that Attila has
literally
made
that second
this back, but in that time that Vitality have been trying to funnel gold into Attila, Splyce have had full pressure, full control, and priority over this jungle. They've moved in, they've placed down the wards, so even though Vitality are in a better position to fight now, they're still in the back foot in terms of the map setup because Splyce have full vision control over topside.
And please look at the mini-map, guys. Look at how many control wards have been placed in this top quadrant. Oh, thank you very much, observers. Really highlighting the steps that Splyce have taken. Now, admittedly, it has ended up being a tower trade. The bottom outer turret was secured there by Jiizuke. A couple of recalls come in, and Vitality are now trying to put similar styles of vision in the bottom quadrant, but it's nowhere near as deep, and it's also not this control wall.
This is also really well staggered in terms of backs from Splyce. Xerxes didn't back, he actually just walked into the mid lane, and then Kobbe used his TP to secondary tower to get 2 people to dissuade Vitality from pushing mid. Humanoid held on to his TP and is now forcing out bot wave. So again, Splyce are doing a good job kind of juggling the different pressure points on the map to get themselves back into control over this area where Vitality had it for a very small window. Splyce walk in saying, no, this is ours.
Yeah, there's absolutely no opportunity for Vitality to pick themselves
Look
up.
at Rakan.
An uncontested Drake. Oh my word, Norscaron, he's coming from behind. Now he can't find Mowgli just yet. Mowgli's going to use the kick to send him away. Jackal looks for the engage, but Vitality are trying to flank. Norscaron goes gold to buy some time. Mountain Drake is up. It's low. It's secured by Splyce. But now everybody's going gold, and Chachi's trying to kick them out with a slicing maelstrom. They managed to get a kill onto Jackal, and Cabo's going so low. That's a shutdown into Norscaron. Everybody from Splyce is in trouble, and Humanoid cannot save the day. Vitality win the fight.
And it was absolute chaos across the board. The fact that Kobbe and Humanoid got separated, were on different sides of the fight. Vitality just destroyed them. We talked about this chaos that Vitality can create in 5v5 scenarios. If you're able to create a 1v1, a 2v2, a 3v3, this composition with its mobility can thrive.
Oh my word, 20-minute Baron is going to be started by Vitality. They were only marginally behind, but it felt so much larger. The team fight goes exquisitely for Vitality, and this will be a discussion that will be debated for a long, long time. Baron is secured. Xerxes late to the party, and Vitality are in the lead.
So it felt like Splyce thought that the priority over the waves was safe enough to walk into the dragon fight and take the fight. They had true confidence in this, but they're fighting off of their vision. Look at all those control boards. Those are on the top side of the map. Splyce haven't gotten the full reset, the full backs to respin their vision, which allows these TPs to get in so deep behind them, and it just, again, causes total chaos in this fight where you can't set a line of scrimmage. Azir really struggles when fights are moving around. He likes to set up his sand soldiers and kind of fight from there.
And it may be fair to say that this was kind of 2 or 3 skirmishes on multiple fronts, which is what we sort of set up at the beginning of the draft. This wasn't a traditional 5v5, and that replay brought to you by Alienware is the moment that Vitality gained control of the game. They have the gold lead of 1600. They have Baron buff on their squad. They've picked up their 3rd tower, and while they have a dragon deficit, they now are in control for the next few minutes.
And I like the fact that Vitality are also putting a lot more priority on picks like Jarvan. We talked about how the Olaf kind of slept through all the way to the final pick that Splyce picked up, and it's normally something that Mowgli really prioritizes. And yeah, it's Cabochard that's playing it this time around. It has a decent matchup into the Kennen into the top lane, but Jarvan means so much more. If Vitality are aware of their problems, they're like, okay, we need to pick our moments, then we need to have the hard engage tool that can go. The Cataclysm is so important for them.
Yeah, and also, look at what's come out of this fight in the gold. Jizuke had a Hex Drinker and the pieces of a Triforce, what feels like not too long ago. Now he's got Infinity Edge, Trinity Force as well. Black Cleaver Titanic for Cabo on this Jarvan, and while Attila is continuing to scale up, Vitality have just got all the tools to play with. Take a look at that. Cabo just goes all the way in with that Cataclysm and nearly solo kills Humanoids.
While that's happening, though, Vitality making use of a lot of pressure with this Baron in multiple lanes, top, mid, and bot lane. You can see they've now taken a tower.
Okay, how much of your prediction did you anticipate when you said Vitality were going to win this game today on the Twitter voting game? Did you think was going to happen at a fight like that?
I didn't think that it would be Jizuke on Corki, but I did think that it would happen in the jungle and around skirmishes.
So literally is the playstyle that we set up, and it's one that Vitality have used to get the advantage. Now, they've still got to get over the final hurdle. They still need to get through Azir, Xayah, Rakan, and Norscarin, once again, unable to find a target. Oh, I take that back. It's a trade. 1 for 1. Support for support. Chachi's coming in with the Slicing Maelstrom, but those are 2 very speedy targets to chase down. Jizuke is able to send Humanoid flying, but for the time being, Splyce have defended the Nexus turret bottom lane.
But Splyce expended so much to not get anything there. If Jizuke is actually able to get to safety, look at mid lane tower. It goes down. Vitality disengaging, absorbing all of these resources that Splyce have thrown on them, and then punishing.
The voice in my head is back, and this might be the 3rd game in a row where a team with a lower standing in the league is able to take down somebody higher up the table. 5,000 gold lead before the Baron buff has even expired. Nearly the entirety of their gold lead has come during the course of this Baron power play, and that is extremely impressive if you're a fan of Vitality.
The only silver lining here for Splyce is that they managed to hold onto their inhibitors through the duration of this Baron. Humanoid is sitting between a lot of items and sitting between a lot of power, so they're trying to funnel as much gold into him. So there's still that shining light if you're a Splyce fan of when this Azir is ready to get a good team fight off where he starts doing more damage. But right now, Vitality just playing out their side lanes really well, really cleanly.
I think as long as Vitality keep finding these 3v3s, 3v4s, 2v3s, Azir's never really going to have time to have those fights to get them out. You know, maybe in the tighter corridors on the inhibitor steps, they can channel a little bit of Leonidas's defensive power. But Vitality seems to have the answers. You said it just a moment ago. You liked what Vitality were doing on their side lanes. Can you expand a little bit more on what it is that you liked leading up to that play?
There's so many times when you look at Vitality in side lanes, and it's like Jizuke who's super far forward and taking something while the rest of Vitality are in base, and then it's a very easy call for the other team to just go kill him with 4 members and not lose anything in return. So it feels like Vitality are finally on the same page where it's 4 members pressuring something, and then it's also Jizuke simultaneously doing something. I was looking at that replay and looking at Chachi's TP and choosing the ward closest to the fight. I actually think that there was a ward that was better that he could have TP'd to make sure he got the engage. Because if Chachi gets the engage here, you might have a completely different map state here.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back and review it to see what ward it was that he picked.
We never get enough time when we're yelling and speaking live to truly like dive deep into it. You know, it's one of the benefits when you're doing a VOD review on stream. You can just pause and look at the state and go, oh, hey, let me double check that. But yeah, regardless of that fact, it's one of those scenarios where because they didn't win the fight, this is from Splyce perspective, Vitality not only get the advantage of the goalie, they also get their first dragon of the game, the Infernal. It's going to benefit every single one of their members. Nash's Tooth, by the way, was picked up by Attila a moment or two ago. Zeal for Jiizuke, another BF sword for Cabo. So Vitality have got this gold lead. They've got Infernal boosting them up, and Baron's in 30 seconds. So that's why they're hanging around the area and starting to set up some form of vision control.
Yeah, and it's playing around the Baron now. So kind of the timer has run out for Splyce to try to consolidate as much farm as possible on Humanoid. They made sure he was always down into that bot lane, picking up that farm, not sharing it with anyone.
I absolutely love seeing the elixirs in the inventory. Elixir of Sorcery here for Vizicsacsi. You have to feel this next big team fight can make or break the game. It's the fight. If you're committing that gold now, you know this either gets you back into the game or you're going to lose it completely. What do you think of like Splyce's chances in a straight up 5v5? Because Vitality, they're trying to not bait. They're trying to avoid the full 5v5 by looking for catches. Xerxes holds onto the Ragnarok for now, but I held my breath when that dredge line connected.
But look at the poke damage. So Vitality can win a fight as long as they layer their poke down from Jiizuke before they decide to go in and cause chaos. Again, if a team fight is rather stationary for Splyce, where Azir's not moving around a lot, Zai gets to stand next to Azir, use his zone, and then kind of Chachi is layered on top of everyone, that's what a good Splyce fight looks like at this point. But the gold difference, I don't know if Humanoid has the damage at this point to really be a massive threat. And it looks like Vitality are patient enough to let Jiizuke poke and whittle and make Splyce desperate.
Oh, there's a sentence I wasn't expecting to hear today. Vitality were patient enough. They are playing this one fantastically, and that Sundisk has got its targets trained on Cabochard, who is now pushing the top lane. Okay, so Splyce trying to get some control back mid, trying to threaten a potential inner mid push, and getting different angles to come into Baron. Vitality, the Baron dance is deep, and Cabo is looking for a flank.
And one of the issues that they have is they don't have the TP on Chachi, so it's really hard for this Kennen to get in, but there's one!
What was that? Norscarin and Vizicsacsi, the two players that tend to get caught, the two players that get punished by Splyce, and the two players that might have sunk the ship.
And it was the patience from Vitality to choke Splyce out of this area, to get all of the waves pushing, layer their vision, and then just wait for the mistake. It came from Norscarin, it was very quickly followed by Chachi, and Vitality closed the door on the second Baron.
I just don't understand the pod thing. I mean, I guess they're trying to look for vision, but why would you split up here? I just don't get it.
So they're trying to force their way into the area to grab the vision, and they just didn't see that Cabochard had slipped in underneath them. Now, Cabo is able to take that pathway, because again, you're setting up your waves before you're going to the objective. Cabo hard shoved the top wave that you can see Humanoid standing next to now, and then was able to slip in underneath Splyce without them realizing that Jarvan had gotten behind him.
Man, all I'm seeing in my head is the question mark ping over and over and over, and that feels like it's it. Another Baron goes the way of Vitality. They've got themselves another Baron power play to start, and no shenanigans afoot now in this river battle. But do Vitality know? I don't think that they do just yet.
I think everyone knows.
Well, I mean, Splyce.
Oh, who's going to be the bait?
Oh, man. Oh, this is gonna. Oh, I feel so bad right now. Okay, so Jackdaw gets jumped on. Vitality, yeah, get a little surprised by this. They didn't start the initiation, but Humanoid, oh, he just gets body popped by Jiizuke. He gets blown up, and it's a double kill for Cabo. 4-0-5. Karbi is running for his life. And he and Chachi are the last one standing. They've got a lot of damage to put down, and that's a shutdown on Jiizuke. But here comes Attila. He's already used the killer instinct, though. He can't follow it forward. It's going to be the inhibitor turret as the focus.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The damage has been done. They've already chunked away a lot of members, pushed the health bars, and they've got the wave crashing behind them. So Vitality still get what they came for, even though Chachi tried to make the hero play.
Man, Vitality get a little bit surprised, but they are so far ahead, it is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. 30 minutes isn't even on the clock yet, and Vitality are now taking down the middle lane inhibitor. Two huge question marks this game. The Dragon fight around 20-odd minutes, and then that Baron engage. Now Chachi, he used his ultimate a moment ago, so we can't use it again. Xerxes going to flash forward and land the T-bone stake. Attila is going to be able to flash away. Won't be able to chase any further. Despite Xerxes hitting Q after Q, there's just not enough damage, not enough chase, and you don't want to dive into the darkness, because if you find one of the carries of Vitality, you're just going to get eaten alive.
There's also a lot of confidence to hang around for the Raptors, knowing that Mowgli has access to Dragon Rage. If anyone really pushes Cabo, he just ultimate them away. And at this point, because the Drake has now been taken, it should just be a 5-man stack, or at least a 4-man stack from Vitality into that top lane, and try to sync with the pushing mid and bot waves.
Yeah, definitely the case. Xerxes will go down here. It's his first death of the game. Doesn't happen very often, but the damage onto Humanoid once Jiizuke rocked up, I mean, I don't really like using this word because I think it's like lazy, but it truly was disgusting. Obliterated him where he stood.
Also some nice fancy footwork from Mowgli and Jiizuke to pick up that kill. Chachi comes in to save the day, does get a nice shutdown, but, you know, Kennen's kind of has his big core items at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, Triforce completed, and that game tells a story. Maximum gold lead for Splyce was 3,300, and more than double that on the side of Vitality. We're near the end of the game, and I just want to give a very quick shout out to Rivington Bruce Bislin III. Whenever anybody plays this Olaf skin, I literally hear his voice in my head yelling, hit him with the meat. It's actually why I used that call earlier. While I'm saying all that stuff, Jiizuke will get taken down by the meat. Xerxes throws out the undertow, but look at the re-engage. Cabo shot comes down, the flag, the drag. The Cataclysm comes up, but there's no follow-up just yet. Humanoid stays alive a few seconds longer, slides forward, divides backwards. All of a sudden, Chachi, the slicing Maelstrom, is easily dodged away from. The Storm is simply not powerful enough to stop Vitality. Dredgeline falls ever so slightly short. Despite the tag on to Cabo, Splyce lived to fight another day.
Yeah, that was a really good hold from Splyce. Humanoid making it out by the hair on his chin right there. Big key thing was also the fact that Attila didn't have access to Flash. Maybe that's a different fight if Attila feels more confident on the likes of Kai'Sa.
Very surprising as well. I'm going to follow Jiizuke a little bit more because I didn't actually anticipate him taking so much damage. He stood toe-to-toe, maybe looking for a crit or something, and Kobe just melted him.
Yeah, stepped it too far forward. Good follow by Norse Garen. I like the fact that Cabo with the Guardian Angel is like, okay, I can go in pretty free here. Not having that GA, though, over a big team fight, if Splyce are able to hold, is a cooldown that we really want to track. And then the other GA that also falls down here is Mowgli's.
Yeah, and of course it was the Phantom Dancer really helping out Kobe during the course of that exchange. While it didn't prevent all crits as it would do in TFT, it managed to help out the defensive play. So now this is only a couple minutes left before these inhibitors come back up. I think maybe even less. I mean, we're entering the late game, 33 minutes. We're getting into these choke points where the Azir and the Xayah, their value is going up, as is the Kennen.
As is the Corki.
Yeah, okay, also very, very true. But when you see Jiizuke's decision-making on that Corki, I get a little more nervous. You know, he really stepped forward. He was trying to make the winning play and got hurt for it. So we get another siege on here, Frost.
And I like the fact that you bring up some of the decision-making. Vitality still get a lot more chances. There's not a lot that we're playing for on the map other than this tower. Again, Vitality can continue to 5-man stack here. Notice what Mowgli's doing. He's got wards on all of his flanks, and he's just making sure that Vizicsacsi can't get behind his team and get that big Kennen ultimate.
Do Splyce wait for an engage and counter? Or do they pull the trigger first? What do you want to see?
The nature of Splyce's composition is they have so much wave clear between Xayah and Azir that they're actually fine. I still feel that the onus is on Vitality from this situation because you're just funneling in gold and experience on an Azir that was behind in terms of itemization, but is now starting to hit really hard. But that said, Vitality still have a lot of control over the map and first access to Baron.
Okay, the Infernal Drake and Mountain Drake is on. Baron is just being melted and shredded. It's already dead. It's already down. Now Vitality are looking to escape. Xerxes cannot find an undertow. The rest of Splyce cannot engage. And this golf claps here as the 7,000 gold lead Vitality secure the third Baron of the game. But Vizicsacsi, he's in so much trouble. Hourglass is available to him. Teleport completes for Cabo. He throws down the Cataclysm. He's being melted. Humanoid manages to get over the wall. It's all of a sudden Cabo. That goes down. It's traded 1-for-1 as Xerxes was the target. Now Attila is being jumped on here as Norse Garen's trying to buy time. Here comes Kobe. That's a shutdown onto Attila. But Jiizuke has got so much damage. He hits Kobe in the face with the big one. The super minions are pushing onto the next of turrets. Mowgli's got no ult available to him. Jiizuke, 2 more rockets. Mowgli, the slice and dice, or the divide rather. He's blown up. He's shut down. Kobe gets another kill. Kobe's pushing forward. It doesn't matter how fed you are. If your decisions are bad, you get punished.
And Kobe is a one-man army right there. He plants his feet. He says, not today, and both inhibitors managed to spawn for Splyce here. So yes, it was Vitality that got the Baron, but they didn't get a lot of those Barons out. And now with the inhib, Splyce are actually able to leave their base and start contesting some of this vision setup.
I really thought that Season 8 of Game of Thrones was over and we weren't going to see that level of storytelling again. But Vitality are fumbling at the final hurdle despite the proactive play.
Okay, so split fight. I'm going to pay attention to Humanoid for a second because I think it is a big deal that he does get over this wall and away from Mowgli. He's drawing attention for... Oh, wow. He draws out the flash for Mowgli.
That was slick. I mean, Humanoid bought so much time.
He buys attention from Jizuke and Mowgli, and it allows Kobbe and North Garen time that they're actually able to kill people. This decision-making from Mowgli, we don't get to see it, that's fine.
Oh, man, look at the mini-map. Teleport in. Attila's going in for the base. Caboshod's around him. He's going to have a slicing maelstrom. This is an Elder Dragon picked up. Splyce are even more scary. Okay, Attila versus Chachi and Jizuke. Jizuke! Oh, that's not going to be enough just yet. Visit Chachi! How did you stay alive? Kobbe teleports into the base. Now, Jizuke and the Supers plus Baron empowered. He's looking for the Nexus. A couple more autos is going to do it.
He's got no flash.
Unbelievable turn of events. Visit Chachi, the little electro hamster. He manages to defend for now.
And this is multiple decisions that you're seeing from Vitality in these clutch moments where they could find the nail in the coffin. They could put Splyce down, but they overreach, they go too deep, and it bites them hard.
Unbelievable game. Splyce and Vitality, 30 kills in total in 36 minutes. Vitality continue to fight. I kind of wrote them off after the early game, but when they got that dragon fight at 20 minutes was great. But now Vitality try to make the game-winning play and it doesn't work out.
So here's the question you have to ask yourself. If you don't dive in and try to go for the kill here, you have two 80 carries who can just destroy the towers. Does the game end there if Attila chooses not to make that play?
I don't know. Jizuke's rocket was like just short as well. Does Splyce defend better if they picked a different ward to teleport to at 20 minutes? Would Splyce have won earlier if they didn't concede the dragon?
I'm actually scared for Vitality at this point because Splyce's composition is going to do a lot of damage. All of that lead that they had where Humanoid wasn't doing DPS is now gone.
Oh, man. Okay, now who... Oh, this is going to be a dumb question. Splyce at this stage of the game, you have to trust more. You have to trust their late game.
I don't know about that.
You have to trust their composure. I've seen too many games of both of these teams and players to put my confidence in this bold and brazen Vitality squad.
I just imagine that Yamato's facial expression was listening to you to say that and be like, come on, Trevor.
I mean, Yamato can think it. Kobbe and North Garen, they're going to get the GA from Mowgli. Is there any other support? Cabo's running. Now, 28 seconds until Elder is up. Kobbe goes down. Just waiting in the bush. The old-fashioned Fnatic death brush. But look, Humanoid obliterating the super minion wave. 2 minutes to Baron, 15 to the next Elder. Now remember, Splyce already got themselves one Elder. They get a second. That could be the buff that helps them win this game. But bear in mind, they have no towers left.
But they do have one TP. So right now you can see that Humanoid's the guy who is taking care of the top lane wave. Obviously his wave clear is a little bit faster than Chachi at this point. I expect them to flip when we start to play for this this Elder, but there's still a window where I actually think both teams just kind of posture, see if they can find a pick, but otherwise I don't think anyone's going to throw it within the next 3 minutes and 13 seconds.
I also bought I'm way too invested in the excitement and the chaos. There's 15 seconds left on the actual Elder Dragon buff. It will only be respawning in 3.5 minutes. My bad, guys.
I'm trying to help you out, Trevor.
I know, you really did try to save me, but I just have to call it out that I got a bit too hyphy with the calls. But the interesting thing is, the game is now completely reset. You know, it's swung. It was 20 minutes of control for Splyce.
It's like a single team fight.
15 minutes of control for Vitality. And now if it is a single team fight, and you know it's likely going to be at one of the big Baron or Dragon pits.
Or wait.
Maybe the base.
Oh.
Not again, Chachi.
Oh, no.
Not again, Chachi. Chachi's one of the players that does get caught at this stage of the game. Got himself that blue trinket that gets cleared out. I mean, do you...
Nothing should happen. This should actually just be very calm until the fight. We're going to be fighting over who can get their ward placement. Obviously, Vitality get a bit more access to the Elder because they're on red side and the pit opens up to them, whereas Splyce have to funnel into corridors. That said, if they can pull Vitality into these corridors, does very well for Xayah and Azir, whereas Vitality really want to continue to abuse how strong Jizuke is in these 1v1 scenarios.
Yeah, you heard the crowd going, ooh, when they heard that poke damage from the missile barrage. Now,
the Baron too.
Vizicachi's got the teleport available to him. Baron is up in 5 seconds. And you can see both Cabo and Jiizuke were bot lane. Jiizuke's now backed away. He's got no TP available. I don't know if he's picked up the package. I was listening for the sound effects.
He's got a package to Baron, and I think that they're going to go over the wall.
How do you want to see each of these teams actually set up their winning team fights? You know, each team's going to have one ideal scenario. So what do you want to see as far as setup is concerned?
Sorry, I was watching Jiizuke. I was like, is he going to package to Baron? I'm watching Vitality flirt with this. They've started it.
Okay, so they're just going to commit. They're inside. No vision here, but Splicer away. Look at the positioning. Humanoid's at least going to check.
They absolutely know. There's the on-the-way ping. Do they get there in time?
I don't think so. There's so much damage. It's already secured. Now that's the Attila. He's going to try hold on. Forced to flash. That could be important, but Baron's picked up. Oh, what is going on? Why? Why? There was no vision. You walked into the darkness. You're professional players. They tried to sneak in and it didn't work. Now all of a sudden Xerxes with the Ragnarok is running down Mowgli. There's another kill in favor of Splyce. All of a sudden Mowgli is running. I cannot believe that the game-winning moment after sneaking Baron is to walk into the darkness and just get killed by a hamster.
Can I get the pip on Yamato now?
Unbelievable. Now, all of a sudden, Splyce are chasing it down at the base. Baron is all for naught. Norscarin is toying with his food.
It's TP on Humanoid. They're going to go for the end.
Yeah, they absolutely are. The base is being destroyed. Xerxes, Kabi, Vizicachi ushering the minions forward. 10 seconds left for Jiizuke. He will spawn in time to see his Nexus die. Chachi is chasing down Mowgli. The tower is now being focused and it is being obliterated. Splyce won the early game. Splyce lost the mid-game, but Splyce win it in the end.
I think that was the most classic Splyce, classic Vitality you could have hoped for.
Take a look at the support staff. That is not a happy face, and I don't think it'll be a happy face on either side. Norscarin is like a naughty little boy that heard his best friend get yelled at instead of himself. But there's a lot of question marks this game. It was intriguing, to say the least.
That one is going to sting for Vitality for a while. I also think that there is some VOD review here for Splyce. I think they'll definitely have some conversations. That Dragon fight in particular was kind of the big swinging moment that moved into the Baron.
Yeah.
The fact that Splyce had expended so much gold and so much vision, but it was literally placed on the wrong side of the map, and then they just had the confidence that they could muscle in and take that Drake, and Vitality just closed the door.
It's interesting for me because I think I've finally been convinced now that Vitality are going to start playing better, right? After the beginning of the split, I pretty much had written them off. And I even said to you at the beginning of the game, like, if Vitality played to their best, what can they do? This was not their best, but there was glimpses of it. We saw those team fights, and the 20 to 35 minute mark was fantastic from Vitality. But they may have just got a bit wrapped up in the craziness. A few poor decisions get punished by Splyce, and Splyce managed to claw their way back in. That is one of the more entertaining games that I've seen in a while, but it is one that both of these teams need to work on if they want to be true contenders for the title.
And there was a lot of conversation about the tug of war, the ebb and flow of who has priority, who has pressure. It was all like Splyce, so Splyce, Vitality. Not enough player names, so I want to give a huge shout out to the bot lane of Norscarin and Kabe in particular.
Yes.
I think that they had a phenomenal game. Chachi had his moment to shine on the Kennen, so I'm actually really curious who they're going to give player of the game.
I have no idea because the three selections for you, key up player of the game at LOL Esports. It is Vizicachi, Kabi, and Norscarin.
Perfect.
So we'll have to find out. Correction, it is Humanoid. My prompter did not say that correctly. So Humanoid, Kabi, Norscarin. We'll need to see who works out. It's really tough.
Wait, they gave it to Humanoid over Chachi?
Yeah, they did.
Oh.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
Okay.
the prompter said one thing, the graphics said another. I don't know who to believe or trust anymore. Can't quite trust the teams and the decision-making because some...
It's fine. Kabe's going to get it. We know.
We'll see. I mean, his Xayah was fantastic. Him and Norscarin definitely had a very good game. But it's just... It's so fun. There's still 3.5 weeks to go left in the split before we get to playoffs. And I need both of these teams to definitely step things up. Look, we're going to head over to the analyst desk to take a close look at that game.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. And I don't even know where to start.
Neither did the two teams.
Let's start right
What
at the
has
beginning.
our league become? Like, Fnatic losing to Misfits. We've got XL beating Rogue. Like, Vitality nearly obliterated Splice, and then that game ensued.
I'm gonna
Today
phrase
has
it.
not been very good League of Legends.
Everyone in EU is good, and EU is better than the rest of the world, so everybody can beat everybody. Let's start right at the beginning then, because the draft was called into question before we went into the game. Vedius, you were like, I want Vitality to draft a certain way.
Yes.
Do you think they drafted a certain way?
So one of the things that I wanted to see from Vitality was them drafting more towards their bot lane. And something that Frost brought up on the cast and something that we've talked a lot about is this team of Vitality does not play Xayah Rakan. The first pick, Xayah, right? And one of the best counters to Xayah Rakan in Poppy, who's been picked up this patch. I understand why they banned it against Vizicsacsi, but I also think that it's something that they could have played, assuming that Xayah Rakan would be the priority. So they don't draft towards their bot lane. They do pick a Corki as an answer to the Azir, which I also think is a mistake because Humanoid is an Azir one-trick, and for the vast majority of the early laning phase, he was obliterating Jizuke, and this is a matchup he is so confident in. So, like, in my opinion, Splice had a winning bot, they had a winning mid, and they had the ability to go even or at least win top. So, like, in my eyes, Splice, like, obliterated Vitality in the draft.
Yeah, and I was super confused. I'm like, okay, Splice come in. They have a very good early game plan, right? Xerxes goes in, invades the enemy. Red buff and Raptors at level 1. So I'm thinking, perfect. He's going to get a huge EXP lead over Mowgli. Instead, what ends up happening is he passed back up topside late, so Mowgli gets the blue buff, and then there's like the most random 2 versus 2 ever that completely shuts down his playmaking in the early game.
I think the early game is one thing. I was looking towards the mid game with Splice, and actually the only notes that I wrote were, I don't even know if you can see this, it literally says Splice mid, question mark, question mark, question mark, Vitality late, question mark, question mark, question mark, because that's basically all I saw that game. Let's start with the Splice mid game, because I think we're all convinced that Vitality had this in the bag, given the way that Splice were playing.
Yeah, so again, like, we highlighted a little bit about how this draft, I felt like early game was heavily favored towards Splice, and I felt like that they had a lot of control over the early stages of game. So then when the Drake fight came about, our expectations were like, okay, we can see what they're trying to set up, we can see what they're trying to do, but there is a risk of an answer. Now, I don't think the Drake itself was bad. I don't think that what they tried to do was bad. I think the execution is ultimately what hurt them.
Exactly, because in this play, you know, Splice set it up so that Norscarin was actually like looping all the way around to try and get like a really nice flank to catch out Mowgli in that fight. Mowgli ended up completely outplaying him. It's like, okay, the play didn't work out. Splice, they get the Drake. They're going to have to sacrifice one member, right? But then they just keep running in and like throwing their bodies in the fight like, I can save you. No, you can't. You just die on top and 4 people just die randomly.
It definitely felt a little bit like I was watching a game of Lemmings in that fight. Like, it just one after the other walking off. Like, yeah, that was rough. And I think that summed up Splice's mid game in its entirety. Team fight after team fight, it definitely felt like Norscarin especially was kind of out of position sometimes.
Yeah, so this is the fight here. And again, Norscarin, I really like this flank onto Mowgli, but Mowgli outplays it really beautifully, right? It's a ward hop and then a flash to dodge both the quickness and the knockup from Norscarin. At this point, Vitality have the full collapse onto Splice, so the fight could get a little bit rough, especially because they lose Xerxes, or Xerxes gets taken down very low towards the start. But then I'm like, okay, Chachi, he uses Zhonya's. Norscarin can leave. They can literally all leave here, but first Norscarin goes in and ints. Then Kobbe 6 in the pit. He ints. Humanoid is then sticking around to try and save Kobbe, so he ints. It's 4 kills when they should have just given up 1 and gotten out.
And this was just like, while admittedly, I felt that Vitality played the fight well in a lot of ways. You highlighted Mowgli. That was a sweet outplay that he made onto Hylissang. And like, I loved the Corki package and how Cabochard executed the fight. But in all honesty, I agree with Ender in that Splice should have been able to disengage from this situation. And while obviously it's challenging because you're being collapsed on 5 sides, or every side rather than 5 sides, right? But they had an opportunity to get out of that situation and they chose to go back in, which cost them the Baron. And the moment Vitality got the Baron, then they were the ones controlling the state of the map and the state of play.
Not only did they get that Baron, Vitality then proceeded to get 3 Barons. And so we had a game where we went to 3 Barons. We went to very late game, and then Vitality essentially started to run it down.
So the thing about Vitality's plays were they kept trying to force fights that they didn't need to force. And like, this is a great example of one where they just secured themselves the Baron. They could just look to slowly set up pressure onto the top tower because they have 2 inhibs down. Like, the map is so favored for Vitality, the worst thing you could do is fight. And instead they tried to force a split fight between 2 different sections, and even then they overcommit when they have a numbers advantage.
Yeah, and then we get into the situation around the Baron too, where like they just get the Baron for free. All Jizuke and Cabochard have to do is wait for the rest of the team to come in, but instead they walk into the Fog of War while the rest of the team is not in a position to react anywhere else on the map. I mean, props to Chachi for reading this play with the good ward to sit in the Fog of War and make that happen, but there is no world in which Vitality should ever be making that play before Vitality are in a position to punish. And then the other 3 people on the other side of the map decide to randomly run it in after 2 of their members have died.
So now, admittedly, like, we are being very critical of both these teams based on this performance, right? And a large part of it was because how the early game played out, expectations are Splyce should have the advantage. And then they threw it away based on a couple of poor executed plays. Fine, they make a throw, they end up getting punished for it. But then the game, like, a game that objectively should have been won by Vitality, given the state of the map that they were in, like, the way in which they threw this was just shocking. And so it felt like that there were so many mistakes from both these teams, it is difficult to praise what the other teams did well because it was just a comedy of errors.
Yeah, and to be clear, like, there was a moment in the mid-game, too, where Vitality had consistently, like, caught out members like Vizicsacsi and Norscairn, you know, especially with good flanks from Cabochard. So it wasn't like this game was void of good plays from either team. It was just the Vitality had these moments, they built up a lead, and then did nothing with that lead and actively threw it away.
Well, whilst it wasn't the cleanest from Splyce, it's a win. And that puts them, again, in a position where they're contesting top 2. This is a team that is continuously pushing how we view them as a top team, and they're no longer that gatekeeper. They're now looking through the gate for those final goalposts, and I'm impressed. I mean, that wasn't the most impressive game in the world, right? But I'm still impressed to see them picking up the wins. Our key player of the game, by the way, is going to be Kobe with 67% of the vote. He had an excellent game, obviously really aided by pretty much everybody in his team. I think Norscairn had a good performance as well, despite a couple of awkward positioning moments. But Kobe's been stepping up over time and time again, right?
I felt like that he was the consistent performer in this game, and I'm quite happy because last week I felt like he was one of the players that was getting caught out a lot. And to see the return to form of the consistent, reliable AD carry that you often expect from Splyce is very good. But overall for Splyce, they need to clean up their play. Fortunately, we're only in week 6. There's still plenty of time before playoffs, and Splyce have put themselves in a very comfortable position to secure a spot in playoffs and maybe even that top 2 spot, given that Fnatic seem to be faltering right now.
Absolutely. Now, after Fnatic's loss, reigning champions G2 Esports look to increase their lead at the top of the LEC. Watch them take on Origen in just a few minutes.
GG.
Kobe and Xerxes moving forward. That's a 2-man route. They get hit with the meat. Mowgli is running for his life, but he can't get away. That's another to Splyce and a double. They managed to get a kill onto Jackson, and Cabo's going so low. That's a shutdown into Norscairn. Everybody from Splyce is in trouble, and Humanoid cannot save the day. Vitality, I get a little surprised by this. They didn't start the initiation, but Humanoid, oh, he just gets body popped by Jizuke. He gets blown up. Okay, Attila versus Chachi and Jizuke. Jizuke! Oh, that's not going to be enough just yet! Vizicsacsi, how did you stay alive? The Baron's picked up. Oh, what is going on? Why? Why? Splyce won the early game. Splyce lost the mid game, but Splyce win it in the end.
Ready for the finals? Experience the LEC Finals in Athens with Shell V-Power.